I've been learning Czech for the past 320 days, and in that time, I've racked up over 500 hours with the language. And most importantly, I'm having a great time. It never feels like a chore or like I'm not making progress in the language. If you're also learning a language but don't feel like that, please stick around. I don't keep anything a secret, and I'm going to talk about exactly what I've been doing in this language learning journey of mine and how I'm going to become fluent in 2 years. Hey there, I'm Ben and I'm a Czech learner. If you're new around here, welcome. I've got a couple other videos of talking about my Czech learning, but this is going to be the best one, I just know it. And for those of you who have seen the other videos, welcome back, it's good to see you. Just today, I crossed the 500-hour mark in my Czech learning, which I'm really excited about, because it marks my passage into Phase 4, Ear Training. Let's quickly recap my master plan that I set out for myself about 10 months ago. I decided that I was going to break up my Czech learning into a bunch of different chunks and do a different amount of time and focus during each of those chunks. I started out with 100 days of 1 hour of learning per day, then 100 days of an hour and a half per day. And then I just finished a section of 120 days for 2 hours per day. This next phase that I'm doing, Phase 4, is only 80 days and is 2.5 hours per day, followed by another 100 days of 3 hours per day. And that's where I'm going to hit 1,000 hours of Czech learning in 500 days, which is when I'll start outputting. On my calendar, July 21st, 2024 is the day that I'll finally try speaking in Czech. And that's a big day for me. It's the beginning of Phase 6, which will start to split my time between input and output. Those first 100 days will be 1 hour of each, and then the next 100 days will be an hour and a half of input and just an hour of output. And then the last 30 days of my learning plan will be a little bit more intensive on the output because as soon as I finish, I'll be going to the Czech Republic. I'll finish with 30 days of 2 hours of output and 1 hour of input. That's 250 hours of output and over 1,500 total hours of Czech in 2 years. My goal is to be functionally fluent when I go to the country. I want to be able to use Czech to easily communicate, make friends, and be there in the country. I won't be perfect, I definitely won't be mistaken for a local, and I will make a whole heck of a lot of mistakes, but I'll be using the language and I'll be comfortable doing things with it. It might sound really ambitious to set such a specific plan so far into the future, but I'm already almost halfway through and only 20 minutes behind schedule. Yesterday was technically the day I was supposed to hit 500 hours, but I only had 499 in 40 minutes. Now, I know that kind of consistency isn't possible for most people. And I'm not trying to say that it is, but I do think that something similar is within the reach of really anybody that's willing to try. For you, it might not be 2 years, it might not be every single day, but that's totally fine. We're different people with different strengths and weaknesses, but learning a language is something that we can all share and enjoy. I hope that as you hear about my journey in Czech, you don't think of it as the thing that you also should be doing, but rather look at the types of things that I do and take my advice more as a guide rather than a specific rigid structure that you also have to follow if you ever want to learn a language. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. No matter what though, your journey will need to start with good goals. But I'm not going to talk about those in this video because just a few weeks ago, our CEO Ethan put together an excellent free webinar all about goal setting. Technically, it's built around New Year's resolutions, but that's just a name. The actual information is timeless and, like I said, totally free. Check the description below for a link and go watch it. Well, actually, open it, pause it, then come back to this video because I still have some more stuff to say. One of the ways I've been able to stay so consistent is because I have lots of flexibility in what I immerse with. I've watched over 5 different TV shows, 40 different episodes of a podcast made for learners, nearly all the videos on the Slow Czech YouTube channel, several times. I've read a few different stories and nearly finished the first 5 Harry Potter books. I've even had some awesome conversations with native Czech speakers by using crosstalk and a few other things. That variety means that I'm pretty much never bored with the language and I can switch things up when I want. I'm basically always looking forward to something in my learning. Maybe it's a new TV show or a book that I'm reading, whatever it might be, it makes it really easy to wake up in the morning and start immersing pretty much right away. If you feel stuck in your routine, I suggest switching up what you're learning with instead of just trying to abandon things altogether. Don't worry about leaving things half finished. It was probably too boring or hard anyway. You don't owe that media anything. When you spend time with a hobby language, you should be having fun. Alright, let's talk about the big question. Where am I at in terms of my Czech abilities? In short, still not amazing. But in the grand scheme of things, really good. Plus, the most important thing is that I'm happy with where I'm at, which I am. I know somewhere between 3,000 to 4,500 words. I'm not super sure because it's a little bit difficult to count in Czech since there's so many different versions of every single word that a lot of systems have trouble tracking, so that's my guess. But I'm very confident that I know at least 3,000. And that means I have various different levels of comprehension depending on the content. When I watch YouTube without subtitles or pausing, I generally know what's happening. I recognize words all over the place and can usually tell you the topic, as well as make a guess on what was specifically said. If there's enough visual context, I can usually figure it out with more certainty. But it's still pretty wishy-washy, and I'm really banking on those keywords to come up or a piece of visual context to help me out. When I watch TV, I go line by line and give myself several attempts to understand or hear. And when I don't know a word, I generally will look it up. When I watch TV like this, I understand roughly 80% of what's going on and being said, if not more. I never feel like I'm lost in the plot or like I'm missing major events. I almost never have to rewind a couple scenes to check something that was said. If I don't look things up, it's a little bit harder, but I still say I get 50 to 60%. When I read along with Harry Potter, I know exactly what's happening, but that's because I know the story very, very well. I probably know about 60 to 70% of the words on the page and understand a majority of the sentences. And when I've done crosstalk, I'm able to have a conversation. I certainly miss things and have to ask them about words or to describe things again, but it's mostly a fluid back and forth. I don't even really translate in my head. I've heard that's a problem that a lot of people have, but I've gotten enough input and time with Czech that the words just carry their own meaning already. It's not like I'm processing anything in my mind. I'm sort of just letting my instincts tell me what they mean, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if my explanation is actually clear, but that's how it feels to me. If you feel like you're translating all the time and can't just understand like that, I recommend you do more interactive immersion since that's usually what learners are missing. That's where you go really nice and slow, like I said with the TV show, and give your brain time to process the language. Check the description for some demonstrations or tutorials on that. However, if you've already done a ton of interactive immersion and still feel like you're translating a lot, it's probably time to relax that and do more free flow. I've always been sure to have a really healthy mix of the two. I currently have more interactive time since I'm lower level, 42% compared to 31% free flow. But in the coming months, that ratio is going to level out as I do more free flow to improve that sort of ability in the language. As for my speaking ability, I don't know yet. I still haven't tried to form a sentence in Czech. I know plenty of chunks or phrases and words, and I've been saying things along with my Anki cards. I feel pretty comfortable with the pronunciation and I can hear all of the sounds of the language, but I haven't attempted to take my thoughts and form a unique Czech sentence yet. And I don't really have the need. I don't live in a Czech-speaking country, and I'm having a great time cross-talking with natives. But that's not to say that I think that everybody should do 1,000 hours of input before speaking at all, especially if you're going at a slower pace or you're learning a language with specific utility to you, like living in the country. It's just our general observation and experience that waiting to speak is less stressful, more engaging, and just as rewarding. If you're the sort of person that really thrives on human interaction, I highly recommend you do crosstalk to make up for that side of things, because that's probably the most common reason people say they want to speak earlier. If you haven't tried crosstalking yet, please do. It's way more fun and easier than it sounds. Now, I want to jump over to another topic, grammar. What have I been doing for grammar in these past 500 hours? How am I understanding the complexities of Czech nouns and verbs? Well, I've pretty much ignored grammar, honestly. I've spent well under an hour on it total, and that's been enough for me. In fairness, I have a background of learning grammar, and so that knowledge has definitely helped me with things. But instead of worrying about grammar pretty much at all, I just focus on what sentences mean and try to understand and recognize the patterns. Without any official study, I've learned a ton of grammar. I'm pretty much never surprised by who's doing what to whom or with what. It's either pretty clear to me or not far from what I guessed. I don't feel like I'm missing anything by not studying grammar. In fact, I honestly think it's made the entire process better for me. I'm slowly working on a much more in-depth look at why I'm doing this and the second language acquisition reasons behind it, so make sure you're subscribed, if that video comes out before 2025. But to make a long story short, if you're struggling to comprehend the grammar of your target language and you're studying a lot of it, I definitely recommend studying less and just trying to focus on understanding what people are saying. But don't spend too long on each thing. Give yourself a guess, check what it means, and then move on. I've also found that reading along to natural speech is a really helpful way to become more comfortable with the grammar. Okay, this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to talk about where I'm going from here and what I'll be doing. Like I mentioned, I'm in phase 4, which has a much larger focus on listening. I'm basically halting new Anki cards, just doing one per day to keep myself guessing, but I'll be replacing that time with some reading. Well, actually, I'm just going to keep doing the same reading I was doing before, but shorten the amount of time. Because the rest of that time, like an hour 45 or 2 hours, is going to be dedicated to just listening. Every day, I'll be watching YouTube in Czech. No subtitles, no pausing, true free flow. I hope to explore a lot of Czech YouTube in that time. I'll also continue watching TV shows, but I'll be doing intensive listening with them. This means stopping after each line and asking myself if I really heard what they said and if I understood. If not, I'll listen again and maybe even again. If I don't know a word or still can't hear, then I'll check the subtitles and maybe look up the new word. This is time intensive, but it's really good practice. And then the last listening activity that I'll be doing is what I've been calling comprehensive reading. It's not a perfect name, but it's the best I had. What I do is I go through the entire transcript of a podcast and make sure that I've looked up at least once and saved every single word. And then I go through it while listening and checking the unfamiliar words. And then I come back to it a third time, typically the day after, and then just listen to it, trying to hear everything that I learned the day before. I'll also be continuing crosstalk a couple times per week, and that's purely listening and I guess responding in English, but I count it as listening. I'll likely have to switch things up a bit as I get further into phase 4 and my interests start to naturally change. But that's the plan, at least. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and maybe learned a little bit of something. I'll be making another one just like this in about 100 days. So if you want to watch that, make sure you're subscribed. And right below that subscribe button is the comment section. And take this video as a little bit of an excuse to write your own update. How's your own learning going? Where are you at? How do you feel about it? Let me know. I'm very interested to read them. Do your best out there, and as always, happy immersing.
I'm here to drop some knowledge, listen up with your ears. I got a language learning method, gonna make it crystal clear. It's called Refold, the game changer, gonna blow your mind. Immerse yourself in media, fluency you will find. Refold.